2025 is the year that the Catholic Institute of Education, the CIE, turns 40. Come with us as we look back over the many years that we've been a part of the education landscape of Southern Africa. The CIE's foundation was and is the gospel of Jesus, love for one another and respect for all humanity. Following in the footsteps of those who founded South African Catholic schools, religious and values education continues to be the constant in our ever-changing world. In 1985, amid widespread state-sponsored violence and turmoil, as the struggle against apartheid intensified, the Catholic Institute of Education was founded. Its aim was to provide essential support for teachers and for the desegregated Catholic schools around South Africa, in which they brought much-needed hope and education to a broad spectrum of South Africans. The logo was simple, a hand reaching out to those who most needed care and support. A decade later, in 1995, South Africa had transitioned to a democracy, and things were looking bright. The abolishment of the death penalty, the writing of the new constitution, and the establishment of the TRC all pointed to a hopeful and peaceful future for all South Africans. Unlike many other struggle NGOs, the CIE did not say, "Job well done," and close its doors. Instead, we continued our mission to bring hope to schools now beset by HIV/AIDS, struggling to implement new curricula and deal with the lingering spectre of racial and other violence. A year later, in the South African Schools Act of 1996, the advocacy of the CIE and the broader Catholic network made sure that the public schools on church property were recognized as having a distinctive religious character, paving the way to continued vital work with ethos. The hand of the first logo is still there, strengthened by faith and a sense of purpose. Into the 2000s, the CIE's work continued to focus on creating caring schools, now in a context of government inaction around the provision of nevirapine to prevent mother-to-child transmission of HIV, and more broadly, a denial of any antiretroviral treatment for those living with AIDS, coupled with spreading corruption in government and a growing sense of discontent among the marginalized and the poor. But, like the astronomers in Sutherland, CIE continued to look for the brightness in the dark and carried on its essential work with teachers and leaders all over South Africa, as well as in Lesotho, as schools sought to meet the challenges of the new millennium. Our logo from this decade shows the circle of inclusion and continues to offer a hand to those in need. 10 more years passed, and as CIE celebrated 30 years of work in 2015, it was against a backdrop of civil and social unrest. The bright hopes of the first generation born into a free South Africa met the darkness of systemic corruption, unchallenged institutional racism, and xenophobia, all in a context of rising unemployment and few choices for meaningful opposition to an increasingly negative status quo. Like the scientists who had searched the Rising Star cave system and found Homo naledi, the CIE had delved into the history of peaceful solutions to a violent world and developed the Building Peaceful Schools program to light the way in the gathering darkness, all the while focusing on keeping children safe in our schools through the Child Safeguarding Program. The CIE adopted a new logo in this decade, echoing the pilgrim's shell that is symbolic of the Camino de Santiago de Compostela, with our continuing focus on creating futures. And 2025? We are unsure, as we always have been, but we proceed in hope. We hope that we will be better than the atrocities of our shared past. We hope that peace will be our shared destination on our pilgrimage, no matter how difficult or violent or dark things are around us. In the 40 years of the CIE's existence, we have been a constant. We have focused on making sure that the hundreds of schools in our network are supported, that the thousands of teachers in those schools are given the help they need to realize their vocations, and that the hundreds of thousands of learners in those schools are nurtured, protected, and guided to become the engaged, capable, and caring citizens that South Africa and the world has always needed. We are pilgrims of hope, Come walk with us into the future.